Level talks between North Korea and the US took place on Sunday. It's the first such meeting since the Kim-Trump summit in Singapore last month, and is set to pave the way for US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang, expected sometime this week. It also suggests progress finally is being made towards the regime denuclearization. But could it be completed within a year? That's what National Security Advisor John Bolton has suggested in a recent TV interview, while at the same time President Trump has said that it's possible that the deal could fall apart altogether. But who to listen to and what to expect? We try to answer those questions with an expert guest later in the show, but first we catch up on the latest headlines at this hour by turning to Devin Whiting at the News Center. Devin?
Hi, Jongun. We've been getting some heavy monsoon rain across South Korea, and concerns were mounting over the approach of Typhoon Prapiroon, which was projected to make landfall on Monday. However, after passing over Okinawa, Japan Sunday night, Prapiroon has changed its trajectory and is heading towards the East Sea. Our Jae-in has more.
Typhoon Prapiroon's trajectory was forecast to cover Korea's southern and western coast, but now it is headed towards the East Sea. That means the typhoon will pass by the peninsula without making landfall on mainland Korea. According to experts, constant pressure changes in the atmosphere steer the storm to its new trajectory. The storm, however, is still expected to cause major infrastructure damage, especially on farms and orchards. The influence of the typhoon paired with the current monsoon rain has already brought massive amounts of precipitation to the entire nation. The government also urged the public to stay alert and updated with the weather forecast until the storm weakens and dissipates in the sea. The weather agency adds that residents of regions prone to be affected by the storm should prepare for any emergency, especially until the conditions improve in the next couple of days. Choi-young, Arirang News.
Now, just a few weeks after getting back from Russia, South Korean President Jae-in is setting out for a tour of Southeast and South Asia. Our chief Blue House correspondent, Moon Gan-young, has more on the president's state visits to India and Singapore.
Less than 3 weeks after championing his new northern policy in Russia late last month, South Korean President Moon Jae-in will be in Southeast and Southern Asia this weekend, first with his eyes set on the world's fastest growing major economy.
President Moon Jae-in will make state visits to India and Singapore from July 8th through the 13th for 6 days and 5 nights.
At the invitation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the South Korean leader will be in India from the 8th through the 11th, during which he'll meet with Indian President Ram Nath Kovind and hold a bilateral summit with Prime Minister Modi to strengthen the two countries' special strategic partnership and discuss ways to expand their future-oriented relationship.
South Korea and India mark 45 years of diplomatic relations this year. Our two countries have developed and continue to develop key partnerships not only in economic relations but also in our pursuit of peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and the international community.
The latter half of his 6-day South Asia tour will take President Moon to South Korea's second biggest trading partner among the ASEAN, Singapore. There, at the invitation of the President of Singapore, Halima Yacob, he will meet with both the Singaporean President and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Mr. Moon is also scheduled to deliver a speech to leaders from Singapore's politics, business, government, academia, and media.
Dubbed the Singapore Lecture, the President plans to detail his vision and policy direction for denuclearization and permanent peace establishment on the Korean Peninsula, as well as the new Southern policy, which aims to elevate our government's cooperation with the ASEAN to a whole new level.
The South Korean president's state visits to these two countries are significant in that his trip to India will mark the first time for the president to visit the South Asia region as president, and Singapore as the chair of the ASEAN this year. Now, analysts believe the state visits will provide an opportunity for South Korea to propel forward its new Southern policy in full swing, and also provide an opportunity for President Moon to seek consensus for his peace agenda on the Korean Peninsula and expand its diplomatic horizon. Moon Gan-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
South Korea's Unification minister says the two Koreas will hold another summit this fall as stipulated in their summit agreement in April. And they'll strive to take some real steps to achieve peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. The Unification authorities in Seoul wouldn't say whether that'll mean economic cooperation, but they stress that North Korea is more determined than ever on that front. Oh Jung-hee has this story.
A sustainable framework for inter-Korean relations and practical steps towards peace and prosperity on the Korean peninsula. That's what South Korea hopes to achieve through its next summit talks with North Korea in the fall, according to Seoul's Unification Minister Tor Junghoon, who spoke to reporters on Monday.
At summit talks in the fall, we hope to reach a stage where we could take earnest and concrete steps for peace and prosperity on the Korean peninsula. We should be thoroughly prepared on a comprehensive level so that inter-Korean relations become institutionalized and therefore sustainable.
Whether that means that economic cooperation between Seoul and Pyongyang can start in the fall, the Unification Ministry couldn't say for sure because that depends on whether international sanctions on North Korea are lifted. But an unnamed high-level official stressed that North Korea is firm and more willing than ever to pursue economic development, with leader Kim Jong-un himself feeling the need to adopt new and innovative technology. North Korea has also been proactive in discussing cooperation with South Korea on railways, roads, and forestation, even suggesting at last week's talks doing things a bit more quickly and taking more tangible steps. Based on these, the official said Seoul hopes in the future to also put on the table President Moon Jae-in's new economic map, which aims to connect and develop economic belts with North Korea. Meanwhile, Seoul's Unification Minister Cho Myung-gyun is set to make a 4-day visit to North Korea starting Tuesday, leading a group of 100 South Koreans for inter-Korean basketball games later in the week. It's expected he could meet various figures in Pyongyang, including Kim Jong-un. This will be the first time he's been to the North in 11 years since November 2007. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
And for the first time since the Singapore summit last month, the U.S. has announced the timeline it envisions for North Korea to get rid of its weapons of mass destruction. National Security Advisor John Bolton said over the weekend that it could be done quickly, in the space of 1 year, in fact. Kim Yo-sun tells us more.
John Bolton, President Trump's national security advisor, said Sunday that the United States aims to dismantle North Korea's nuclear weapons program in a year.
Well, what our experts have devised is a program that, with North Korean cooperation, with full disclosure of all of their chemical and biological nuclear programs, ballistic missile sites.
That hasn't happened yet?
It has not. We can get, physically, we would be able to dismantle the overwhelming bulk of their programs within a year.
That's what Bolton said during his interview with CBS Face the Nation, and it's the first time for a member of the Trump administration to publicly state a timeline for the North's denuclearization. This also comes ahead of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's scheduled visit to Pyongyang later this week. In addition, Bolton pointed out that it's advantageous for the North to move quickly to achieve the goal of complete denuclearization, which the regime committed to during the Singapore summit on June 12th.
And it's to North Korea's advantage to see these programs dismantled very quickly, because then the elimination of sanctions, aid by South Korea and Japan and others can all begin to flow.
In a Sunday interview with Fox News, President Trump said North Korea is, quote, very serious about denuclearization. He also reiterated that he got along with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, adding that the two discussed various issues, including denuclearization, as well as the return of the remains of U.S. troops killed during the Korean War. Saying there were no concessions made by Washington, President Trump also highlighted that he envisions a great future for North Korea. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
Working-level officials from North Korea and the US reportedly met at the inter-Korean border over the weekend. It's thought to be in preparations for US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's expected visit to Pyongyang this week to continue discussions on the regime's denuclearization. Lee Ji-won has more.
It seems as though talks to work out the process of North Korea's denuclearization have kicked off. A senior U.S. State Department official on Sunday confirmed that U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines and former nuclear negotiator Sung Kim and North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee met again on Sunday at the truce village of Panmunjom on the interKorean border. This comes 19 days after the Pyongyang-Washington summit was held last month and is the first face-to-face meeting between the two sides since Singapore. While not much is known about the details, the South Korean daily Joseonilbo reports that the two sides exchanged views on the current situation for about an hour. And with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo expected to visit Pyongyang this week, Sunday's meeting is thought to have covered the agenda for Pompeo's visit, mainly North Korea's denuclearization. Ambassador Kim and Che were at the forefront of negotiations between Pyongyang and Washington in the lead-up to the Singapore summit. The two held a series of pre-summit meetings in Panmunjom and continued their talks in Singapore right up until the first meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump. At that time, reports said the two talked over the complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization of North Korea, as well as its security guarantee from the U.S. While follow-up meetings to the June 12th summit were expected to be held soon after the summit, this first publicly known contact between the two sides was not announced beforehand. But with Pompeo's upcoming visit to Pyongyang, as well as the expectation that these working-level talks will be held again, there's hope the two sides can come up with a framework for their shared goal. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, joining us today to discuss these latest developments, we have with us Tor Junghoon, the director of the Aju Institute of Unification at Aju University. Professor Tor, thank you for your time today.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, it's been revealed that Sung Kim has met with Choi Sun-hee again at Panmunjom for working-level talks between the US and North Korea. It seems to be preparatory talks towards Mike Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang later this week, perhaps. What do you make of this development?
I think this meeting, if it takes place, is going to take place within 3 weeks after, or less than 3 weeks after the summit in Singapore. In a normal international diplomacy, it's very timely, it's very fast. Of course, I'm aware that there are some voices here in Seoul and as well as international community that it's really too slow. Especially the rhetorics of Donald Trump right after the summit in Singapore. But in a normal situation, preparing the working-level meeting after the summit within 3 weeks is very, very fast. And also, I believe this is the third visit of U.S. Secretary of State visiting Pyongyang. And unless he knows that something will come out, I don't think he will put his foot into North Korean territory again. So I believe from today, when working-level meeting took place, until the actual visit, the real discussion is now taking place.
But you've said it's very fast. 3 weeks is not a lot of time between the summit and follow-up talks. And you say Pompeo will not go unless there is something. But what do you think can actually come out of it then? I mean, we're not really sure what they're going to talk about, and we're expecting it to be very important towards North Korea's denuclearization. But what can we actually realistically expect to come out of this talk?
Realistically, I think is the key word. There's a lot of wishful thinking and talk. Again, meeting again at the working level within 3 weeks. I believe, as Donald Trump indicated in Singapore, there were a lot of, or at least a few important unwritten agreements between two sides, which were not revealed in the agreement as we saw. Unless there was such an agreement, this 3 weeks time is too short to prepare the working level meeting. If you say working level, it's not really working level because state of the Secretary of the State. Now there are two expectations. One is more wishful thinking, I believe, is to have a clear timetable toward denuclearization, whether it's 1 year or 2 year or beyond, clear timetable. To me, I'm a bit skeptical of the feasibility of such timetable because it's too much of a give up to one side. If you sign up such a timetable, any deviation will be seen as breaking up the agreement. In order for sign such a specific timetable, there will be a proportionate specific level of details from the other side in terms of reward, in terms of compensation. So far, we haven't seen any specific information about what kind of compensation North Korea will get from US, international community, as well as South Korea. So in the absence of such specific information, signing on a specific timetable, no smart brain will do that. So what would be a really realistic expectation, as you indicate, is, I believe, is a few immediate, meaningful next steps. A closure of certain things, closing down certain programs, or hopefully announcing dismantling few, not all, nuclear weapons themselves could be very important, significant steps. I believe if we achieve that level, I think momentum will continue to be alive, and next step is coming forward.
So you talk about significant steps, but perhaps small significant steps at the moment. But then US National Security Advisor John Bolton comes out and says, we have a plan ready to denuclearize North Korea within a year if North Korea cooperates. I mean, what do you make of a statement like that? Is that a realistic goal for dismantling Pyongyang's nuclear weapons within 1 year?
As we interpret Trump's statement with a sense of salt and pepper, we do have to apply the same method to John Bolton's statement. I believe he's playing a very smart bad cop within US administration and sending out the message that Trump doesn't want to deliver himself because he wants to play a good cop, rightfully so, vis-a-vis North Korea and international community. And if you listen to his news interview carefully, he said it is possible to do so. And I think he also knows that it is remotely possible. It's not theoretically impossible. And he's stating the fact. However, he is not meaning to complete the whole process, but he's adding the pressure, keeping on the pressure, so that when, for example, Pompeo visited, Pompeo can say there's a strong skeptics and doubts in Washington, such as someone who believes that our current ongoing conversation will result in nothing. I think that's exactly the role of the bad cop. And for that sense, he's playing very smart bad cop role.
So, I mean, let's talk about that role just a little bit more. I mean, he did take a backseat, seemed to take a backseat role during the North Korea-US summit, because he seemed to have angered, his comments seemed to have angered North Korea when he talked about the Libya model of denuclearization. And what do you make of his re-emergence as such, as this kind of bad cop role in the US TV media to Trump's administration right now?
History has no hypothesis, but if you look back and imagine a situation that John Bolton didn't say such a word and North Korea didn't react with such a fierce response, then I believe Singapore summit June 12 probably would have not happened. Because he escalated the level of the game up to the level that it's kind of make or break situation. And Donald Trump signed a letter May 24th, right, with that impressive signature. And North Korea within 24 hours responded. And again, I think he is escalating the level of, I would say, tension or sense of expectation. And when Pompeo's visit comes and he expects some meaningful result comes out against the backdrop of this warning. To me, I'm not surprised that he mentioned and he continues to his bad cop rhetoric and stories. And also, U.S. government is run by a system, not by specific individuals. John Bolton, as an advisor, security advisor, I think is playing his role, rightfully so. And is supposed to add very conservative, very security-oriented voices to the whole administration's policy-making process. And of course, Donald Trump will have to balance his talk with a more forward-looking, positive voices.
The US media are currently citing US intelligence sources that are saying that North Korea has continued to enrich uranium and has been expanding its missile facilities as well. How surprising or unsurprising is that to you? And does it seem that the summits with the US and South Korea the North Korean nuclear program is continuing as normal despite these summits that have happened recently.
I think it's interesting, to say the least, that these images have been exposed and shared with the international community. What does it tell? Does it mean North Korea has decided to stop following the agreement with US? I don't think so. No one actually expected that right after Singapore summit on June 12, both sides will stop any hostile actions. We haven't expected that North Korea will announce moratorium for the ongoing development of nuclear capacity. We know that Yongbyon facility has been closed down and others. So North Korea has made at least a minimum commitment completed. But at the same time, unless and until peace talk is signed, peace agreement is signed, as well as, and they believe the US is no longer a threat to their own regime, and US and international community provide support, needed support for their own economic recovery and prosperity. I believe North Korea will try to keep at least one or two other options in their pocket. So at the moment, there's no moratorium entire moratorium of their capacity nuclear development. But at the same time, they're ready to listen what other side is bringing to the table. So to me, it's a sign that US and North Korean ongoing negotiation will take probably longer than some of us expect. 1 year, certainly not. 2 year probably is short. To me, it's more of an Israel-Palestine peace talk. It took about 3.5 years before they signed on any meaningful paper on Oslo in '93. So to me, it's a process that is starting, and that process itself is decreasing the level of tension in our peninsula. And it's kind of give and take negotiation and try to bring down one level at a time, the level of tension, the capacity of North Korean nuclear development.
So you're telling us we need to be patient.
Patience is the key. If you want to finish this business within a year or two in a very rushed way, something will break out.
In the meantime, Kim Jong-un has made his first public appearance, it seems, since his third summit with Xi Jinping. And it happens to be that he was reported to have toured the factories in Siniju, a city near the border next to China. Is it just coincidence that after his first appearance with Xi Jinping, that he turns up in a region that has strong economic ties with China? Or is there a different message that he's trying to send out?
There are two messages I believe Kim Jong-un wants to send out, that he cares about economic well-being of his people. That these factories that Kim Jong-un visited produce one of the rare customer items, not industrial goods, such as cosmetics. So he really wants to send out a message that he really cares about the everyday life of citizens of North Korea. Why Siniju? Just after Xi Jinping? It can be coincidence, it can be intentional. To me, more than the location itself, I believe the North Korea-China economic cooperation will increase, and it can be a very significant factor for the ongoing peace talk. Because as we know well, China has been a sole supplier of lifeline to many North Korean lives as well as the leadership. With many pressure from US, China practically de facto has closed down that pipeline, closed the tap. Now all signs and indication and then the witnesses from the border shows that China is now opening up the tap. Now after their effort to actually decrease the level of sanction in UN, I think they try to open up even more the tap. And that might influence the whole equation of North Korea. How seriously North Korea should deal with US pressure and whether they can survive, and how long is their timeline. Without such sanction without lifting of sanction from China, not everybody, many in Korea and others expected that the economic life of North Korea can be really devastated within a year or two. With the opening up of that border, and recontinuing of the supply, the lifeline of North Korea can expand to 5 to 6 years, if not decades. Then North Korea will have many other factors to consider before signing any serious deal with US. So this is very important development we need to watch carefully.
Yes, we need to watch the China-North Korea relationship as well as the North Korea-US relationship very closely.
Indeed.
Renier, thank you for coming in today and thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with more insights and analysis of the day's top stories with our panel of experts. Hope you can join us again then. Goodbye.